Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Bent Creek Bio-Botanical Research and Economic Development Update. I'm Dan McClellan, e-learning coordinator for the BioNetwork BioEd Center, and our BioForum is scheduled to run from 10 a.m. until approximately 11:30 Eastern Time. We have two fantastic panelists on the call with us today. Greg Cumberford is president of Bent Creek Institute, and Joanne McCoy is director of the Germplasm Repository. And in just a moment, I'll turn it over to Greg and Joanne, and we'll begin today's discussion. Please feel free to type any questions that you may have in the chat box located on the right side of the screen. Now, I'll be keeping a record of each question that is submitted, and we'll address all of your questions. Be sure to send your chats to all participants, and this will ensure that we don't miss your question. We'd also like to know who we have in our audience today. I have loaded a poll, and you should see it on the right side of your screen. Please select the option that best describes you. Also, we want to have an accurate record of your participation in today's BioForum. So for question number 2, let us know if you are sharing a screen by typing the total number of participants at your location. Now, if you're the only person viewing at your screen, then just type a number 1. Now, while you're doing that, I encourage you to mark your calendars for next month's BioForum. More information and registration is available online at ncbionetwork.org. And at this time, I'll turn it over to our first panelist, Greg Cumberford.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be able to give this forum and I guess future listeners to this webinar an opportunity to understand more about what Bent Creek Institute is and does. And so I'll start with just more of a situational overview, and we'll cover the economic development aspects of our work first, and then about halfway through the allotted time, Dr. Joanne McCoy of the Bent Creek Germplasm Repository will provide a botanical research update. Bent Creek Institute is a nonprofit organization based at the North Carolina Arboretum, which is an affiliate campus of the University of North Carolina system, and we're located in the Bent Creek watershed, which is a multi-thousand-acre, originally Forest Service experimental forest, just southwest of Asheville, North Carolina, next to the Blue Ridge Parkway as it comes through. And this is a tremendously relevant location for an enterprise such as ours, as I hope my presentation will bear out. Our basic purpose is conservation and development of Western North Carolina's unique plant biodiversity assets, and we are anchoring those through expressions in our nation's emerging integrative wellness economy in scientific means through botanical quality and safety as our principal expression. Let me see if I get used to advancing the slides here. And some further context is, I think, due because of the fact of how we're working with other economic development partners, and most notably the BioNetwork, which has established a natural products laboratory under the direction of Sarah Schober at the AB Tech Enka campus, is a principal partner to Bent Creek Institute in building a regional economy for Western North Carolina and indeed more widely for the rest of the state of North Carolina, rooted in this translation of natural products into a wellness-based economic sector. So I'll be running through some of the grounding facts that I think are helpful. One of which is that the Institute for Emerging Issues recognized Western North Carolina as the state's center for integrative health care. We have nearly half of the state's massage practitioners, nearly a third of the state's acupuncturists, and we have new infrastructure that's come in the last couple of years through entities like the UNCA Sherrill Center for Health and Wellness and the mission integrative health efforts that are underway through one of our largest area employers. We also have the distinction of having a very high concentration of complementary and alternative medical practitioners here in Western North Carolina, which, if you looked at it from a per capita basis, compared to our regional population, it's over a 10 times higher concentration of complementary and alternative medical practitioners, which to me is a very interesting fact that emerged in a study that was done back in 2009. In this health sector, which includes both health services and private education related to the delivery of health care, we have a higher than average, about 8 to 11% higher wage basis than the North Carolina average. And this sector is the largest single sector employer in our region at 19%. This is a recent fact that just came to me a few days ago through October 2011. We have the next to lowest unemployment among the 14 North Carolina metro areas at 7.7%. And through the most recent period, five-year period measured, the Asheville area's GDP rose, I think, a very healthy 18.4% to $13.9 billion. So these are some grounding regional economic development facts that I think tie in very interestingly to the work that is ongoing here at Bent Creek Institute with the translation of the scientific basis that's rooted in our region's biodiversity into a whole economic sector. And of course, Bent Creek Institute is working in partnership with other entities to do this. In the realm of natural products, there are 5 job sectors that are actually being integrated by design under programs like the Asheville 5x5 project, which is a 5-year coordinated effort to bring 5,000 new jobs into the Asheville area, and being led through the Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce. And those sectors are arts and culture, and when we talk about that in the realm of natural products, that also includes agriculture. Our laboratories, which provide the basis for our science and technology core expressed commercially through various kinds of testing services. A natural products advanced manufacturing jobs core, healthcare, and then linking it all together is our knowledge centers through the universities and community colleges and even related private institutions. So this alignment of these 5 sectors is really helping to drive our regional economic growth. And Bent Creek Institute and some other partners besides the BioNetwork are working in a coordinated way to link all of these together into a jobs corps for Western North Carolina. The key that I think makes this work and that distinguishes us as a regional economic development partnership is this cross-sector collaboration. So looking at it in terms of all of the different parties that are aligning in these various sectors, this is not an exhaustive list, the ones that I'm showing here, but it gives an indication of the extent to which there's a conscious linking and integration of these different sectors into a very regionally distinctive identity from the standpoint of national and even international understanding of what makes the Western North Carolina region so unique and distinctive from a branding standpoint. So Bent Creek Institute is assisting these disparate groups, sometimes that have competitive interests, to align under a larger regional theme. And I think that theme is best characterized as a unique model. We're developing a unique model for collaborative, sustainable, and holistic wellness that is backed by science, by healthy diet and lifestyles, and affordable primary health care access. And it's something that while I'm sure other regions in the United States and around the world are also embracing these themes, the way in which it's manifesting in real time here in Western North Carolina has very interesting implications for our manufacturing, for our agriculture, for our life sciences and science and technology development cores. All of them are plugging into this in a very interesting way. A little bit more in terms of the North Carolina Arboretum and Bent Creek Institute's collaborative relationship. We are independent as a 501c3, but we are domiciled here at the North Carolina Arboretum, which gives Bent Creek Institute access to intellectual and legal and other infrastructure relationships to the UNC system that we might not otherwise have, but it also gives the North Carolina Arboretum the opportunity to, in some sense, outsource natural products related, biobotanical diversity related economic development for the region, which is part of its core mission. So it's a very symbiotic relationship that has done very well for both the Arboretum and Bent Creek Institute. And the diagram I recognize is not entirely legible, but it basically just shows the different reporting structures of the UNC system, and then the reporting structure that we have here through Bent Creek Institute. And I'm going to now turn to a specific initiative of Bent Creek Institute that we've been developing very much in collaboration and partnership with the North Carolina BioNetwork's Natural Products Laboratory, and that's an entity that we've created called the US Botanical Safety Laboratory. And to back that is an overarching vision that is the point of our efforts, which is that we imagine a day when all Americans can rely on safe, validated, and affordable botanicals as a primary wellness support system backed by ethical life sciences, sustainable cultivation practices, and thousands of years of traditional use worldwide. Our mission within that vision is to accelerate biobotanical life sciences economic development in North Carolina based on validated botanical medicines, sustainable technologies, and integrative healthcare solutions that serve the wellness needs of our region, our state, and our nation. So botanical extracts and teas and many other kinds of deliveries are now a way of life for millions of Americans. It is no longer any sort of a fringe thing to consume botanical or botanically based nutraceutical ingredients in our daily lives, whether it's in the form of beverages or dietary supplements or topical systems. There's just many, many things that are part and parcel of how people approach wellness, and they do so every day in many, many different streams through botanicals. And this is backed by the efforts of hundreds, if not thousands, of small, medium, and large companies that are participants in the supply chain from raw material sources all the way through to finished packaged goods. But as has also been the case, especially in the last couple of years, You know, media contains many reports and instances about adulteration, contamination, and poor good manufacturing practices in botanical dietary supplements. It's certainly within the industry media a fairly common event, but you don't have to look very far in terms of national media coverage to see that concerns about you know, microbial contamination, heavy metals, cross-species adulteration, etc., is an ongoing challenge for our natural products industry related to botanicals. You know, all botanical ingredients are at some risk for adulteration, and most of them, a majority of them, are actually imported from countries like China and India and Eastern European blocs and Egypt, and they come from all over the world. I'm giving some common examples here that people are consuming in, you know, great abundance: turmeric root, green tea, peppermint, licorice root, rhodiola, and milk thistle are just some very common examples. One of the greatest challenges in this whole realm is that botanicals come in so many different formats, and the format difference can pose great challenges to identity, purity, and compositional determinations, especially when there's been a loss of the original botanical morphology in the ingredient supply chain. When it's just a crushed green or brown powder, it confounds efforts to confirm identity unless you are using sophisticated analytical methods. Each botanical ingredient indeed requires a combination of scientific assays that are based on authoritative botanical references in order to confirm identity parameters for botanicals. It so happens that Western North Carolina is the hub of a cluster of expertise that truly can assist in qualifying and validating safe botanical wellness options. And when you look at it from a standpoint of a map of North Carolina, these are a number of both private institutional and academic and medical and healthcare related entities that all have a role to play in this effort. And it's interesting to note geographically just how there really is a kind of concentration of this expertise here in Western North Carolina, and then radiating out from there. I want to draw particular attention, but not dwell too much because Joanne will be speaking, but our own Bent Creek Germplasm Repository is a very fascinating and unique resource within this regional effort under Dr. Joanne McCoy's direction. There's an ongoing process of creating GPS-designated botanical vouchers. There's a growing medicinal endophyte reference library, and it's allowing us to offer botanical identity confirmation that tie to validated botanical reference materials. And also to note, as Joanne will go into much greater detail, that we are a collaborator on the Wake Forest Botanical Research Center on anti-inflammatory botanical lipids. And so Bent Creek Germplasm really serves a unique anchoring role as both a germplasm repository with 100% GPS-based accessions focused on medicinal plants and their endophytes. So more broadly, when I became involved in a much more direct way as Bent Creek Institute's president just over this past year, it really came to me that no other university-based nonprofit botanical testing collaborative exists in the United States with a medicinal botanical germplasm and endophyte repository grounding those efforts. And so those entities that I listed earlier on the geographic map became for me an opportunity to organize into an entity that could be branded nationally, and each of them has relevant and specific botanical testing expertise grounded in either federal research or GMP quality management systems. And so that became for me an interesting and timely opportunity to create a nonprofit collaborative of these North Carolina entities into a safety and quality testing laboratory that would be directly responsive to FDA 21 CFR 111 botanical quality parameters according to the basic breakout of identity, purity, strength, and composition. And so we have now gone forward with that. We're establishing a Western North Carolina-centric fee-for-services revenue base for the participating members in this USBSL entity. And Bent Creek Institute, as a core strategy, can channel market demand to the USBSL partnering organizations here in North Carolina. So we've then created a logotype and a branding around that, and we'll be starting to launch our services through a soft launch starting in January, and ramping that up for in time for the coming industry. The biggest industry trade show is Expo West out in California, and so by then we'll be up and running to offer these kinds of testing services to the wider industry. And that industry is composed of a number of different clients, including federal agencies through service contract relationships, industry, including the various industry trade groups that are linked intimately to botanical natural products, foreign export suppliers and regulatory bodies that are looking to emulate our national standards and develop the same quality control specifications as we have here in the United States. Individual manufacturers, marketed, and distributors of natural products. And then even the insurance companies who require expert witness and forensic support when they deal with product liability claims and cases that oftentimes turn on very precise, very specific questions of what was the compositional identity of a given product that was alleged to be the reason for some kind of an adverse event happening. And then also services to clinical researchers and botanical drug developers, both domestically and in foreign countries. Some market indicators that show why this is timely to bring forward this type of a service. The market for U.S. food safety testing is recently, I believe this is a 2010 figure, shown to be already a $3.4 billion a year industry. So it's a very significant industry within the wider $50+ billion U.S. Natural products industry figures. There's been a tripling of U.S. ports of entry for imported foods, including botanical ingredients, to over 300 now. This isn't just in the past 10 years. The U.S. herbal dietary supplements market has now passed $5.2 billion as of 2010. That marketplace has seen a steady average of 5% growth throughout the recession, and in prior to the recession, it was even growing at a higher basis. And interesting to note, too, that traditional Chinese medicine supplement sales surpassed the chiropractic channel for the first time in 2009 at nearly $500 million in supplement sales. And that's important because traditional Chinese medicine supplements are almost largely based in botanical sourced ingredients and are based in botanical medicines. So it indicates that these integrative healthcare modes are driving U.S. growth in botanical wellness solutions. So for 2012, Bent Creek Institute's activities are focusing in these 5 areas. First and foremost is to manage and grow the USBSL Analytical Testing Services Suite with our initial partners, which are the BioNetwork Natural Products Laboratory, our own Bent Creek Germplasm Repository, and the David H. Murdoch Research Institute in Kannapolis as our core laboratory partners, and then bringing online over the course of 2012 other capacities, more specialized capacities that exist at some of the area university partners that have joined into USBSL, which are Western Carolina University, Appalachian State University, University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and then through another phase of our implementation when we start to be able to grow out commercial vouchers, the Mountain Horticultural Crops Research and Extension Center at NC State. So those are the core partners. And then we're also in the midst of launching a proprietary biohazard detection technology and develop beta prototypes for industry partner use. That's another key project that we've been developing. We want to continue to help to build Bent Creek Germplasm Repository's capacity and collaboration in industry services as a key partner here at the North Carolina Arboretum. And we are offering and entering into strategic consulting services agreements with industry and even foreign government entities. And we will, of course, continue to seek collaborative opportunities for research grants related to botanical identity confirmation methods and other areas that are right in our core of activity in terms of our domain expertise. And so this for me, shows that we can create and are in the process of creating a strong collaborative that's rooted in our regional assets, including our life science research infrastructure, our agricultural biodiversity and microclimate diversity, which includes a long history of horticulture in medicinal plants throughout the state, and then our native biodiversity assets. So we will bring science-based decisions to safe and efficient botanical commerce and through integrative healthcare applications. And I believe that is the halfway point for our presentations. And because I have to leave this call no later than about 10:40, we agreed that I would go ahead and take any Q&A. And so, Dan, I guess, are these questions that I should respond to?
Yeah, these are the questions, Greg, that have come in while you've been speaking. And if other folks, if you have some additional questions, please go ahead and send those in to us through the chat box.
Okay.
But we can take a look at these questions now.
Okay. First question, it appears Western North Carolina has a good model of cross-sector collaboration. How can this effort translate across the rest of the state? Well, I think what will happen is that it will translate across the rest of the state as the agricultural and horticultural needs globally start to focus on ways in which North Carolina can become more and more of a value-added product supplier. And an example which is being led under Dr. Ski Chilton at Wake Forest has to do with the emerging need for globally for omega fatty acids from non-marine sources. And there are a small constellation of botanicals that the Wake Forest Botanical Research Center is engaged in characterizing, and which our Bent Creek Germplasm Repository is partnering on, that would have tremendous agricultural implications when the underlying characterization of the content and the therapeutic benefits of the botanically based omega-3s bear out. And so as soon as the agricultural basis is established, or the demand basis is established, then it will bring in the other elements of those job corps that I was describing: the laboratory, the knowledge centers, the integrative healthcare, and so I think that what we'll see is global demand trends for high quality, well characterized, highly pure, meaning absence of adulteration, absence of heavy metal contamination, absence of microbial contamination, those kinds of things, all will point towards this state's particular capacity to supply into that global demand. And I'm not just speaking about raw botanical materials, but really more about value-added intermediate products, which are far more efficient to transport and much better characterized in terms of specific quality or biomarker parameters. So I think that's one way. And I think another way is that, and this is something I was just involved in last week. I was at a summit forum on the passage of naturopathic licensure here in the state of North Carolina. And I truly believe that that as people become more and more aware of opportunities for responsible self-care through diet and lifestyle changes, and it's particularly so in rural parts of North Carolina, that there's a shortage of general practitioners who can really help people to understand the roots of common issues of diabetes, obesity, and heart health challenges. What a profound role that diet and lifestyle can play. And so I think that as our state adopts more support for and particularly adopts naturopathic licensure, then that will also translate the kinds of things that are happening here in western North Carolina, which has such a well-integrated integrative health sector. Those benefits will translate across the rest of the state. So that's two thoughts on that. Next question, have there been any new regulations implemented for natural products recently? Well, the technical answer here in the United States is no, there haven't been any new regulations. However, there has been the issuance of a draft industry guidance by FDA pertaining to new dietary ingredients, and that has been an area of tremendous focus that is almost too long for me to go into at this time, but which can be fully accessed by going to any of the major natural products industry trade group websites. Council for Responsible Nutrition, American Herbal Products Association, American Botanical Council. All of those websites will have summaries about the impact that potentially the issuance of the new dietary ingredient guidance would have had. In terms of the GMPs, the 21 CFR 111 GMPs, those are fully implemented now. So really what we're seeing is more increasing enforcement actions taken by FDA related to the implementation of the 21 CFR 111 GMPs. Has there been consideration for testing of GMO crops? Absolutely. GMO crops are banned in many countries around the world. Here in the United States, they are legal, and so we're seeing a proliferation of them more in food crops, but not exclusively. I believe alfalfa has now been signaled as a GMO crop that could be making its way into dietary supplement products. We at this point don't have that capacity in our core testing offerings, but there are actually many, especially over in Europe, there are many laboratories now that offer GMO testing, and I know Eurofins is an example of a large analytical testing company that will do that type of testing. So it's something that if we certainly see a lot of demand for here in the United States, it would just be a matter of either through partnership or bringing the necessary equipment online to be able to offer that as well. Okay, next question. Has there been any research related to market demand and market share for USBSL type services in the United States? I would say I haven't done any formal research related to market demand, but I know that it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and I know that there are companies that are offering USBSL type services that are doing quite well. They're fellow analytical laboratory members of the various trade groups that we're also part of. And so all of them are experiencing increasing demand. Some of them, like the larger companies like Covance, are through their public disclosures, are growing fantastically in their analytical services division. So I think that there's no question, based on what we're seeing as companies go forward with implementing GMPs, that the demand will be there. There's also been another, this relates back to question number 2, there has also been the passage of a new law called the Food Safety Modernization Act that's not really been implemented at the regulatory level, but the Food Safety Modernization Act is going to drive market demand for testing services related to the prevention of contamination and safety concerns related to imported foods, and that also includes imported botanicals. So there's a lot of very strong drivers that are pointing towards the increased demand for these type of services. Second part, also, has there been any research on the potential economic impact of these efforts for North Carolina? There has, and that was something that we did privately as part of a grant proposal that Bent Creek Institute submitted to the Golden Leaf Foundation. And I want to take time to recognize that Bent Creek Institute's core support over the last several years has come from either the Golden Leaf Foundation or the North Carolina Biotechnology Center. And so we have had to provide supportive research on potential economic impact. And in our grant application to Golden Leaf Foundation, which was successfully awarded last year related to Joanne McCoy's research, we showed a cumulative potential economic impact related to her laboratory's efforts, and I believe it was around a 5-year cumulative impact of about $7 million, and that has to do with different commercialization elements of the testing services and germplasm provision and some other elements that she'll discuss. So I'll leave it for that, for her.
Thank you, everyone, for those questions, and thank you, Greg, for talking about those and for your presentation. So now we'll start the second part of our discussion and pass it over to Joanne.
Excellent, and I'll sign off.
Bye, Greg. That was great. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here. This is my first presentation via the telephone. This is interesting. Are we on? Can you hear me?
Yes, Joanne, we're in good shape.
Okay. I just heard a beep. So I'm going to quickly talk about the Bent Creek Germplasm Repository project. And I think I'm looking at the participants that a lot of you have seen me give this talk, a similar talk in the past, and some of you haven't. So please bear with me if I review a few things very quickly. I'm going to be talking about how the repository can be utilized for collaborative research and economic development, and we'll start with just very quickly reminding everybody exactly what germplasm is. Oftentimes people don't want to shake my hand when they know that I work at a germplasm repository, but it's simply the hereditary material transmitted from one generation to another. And in this particular instance, also we usually use this in the form of seed. So it's a seed bank, and then a gene bank is simply a germplasm storage facility. Gene banks are set up for long-term storage of genetic diversity representing a region or a specific crop. And why do we want to set up a gene bank? Because for research purposes and conservation purposes, it's really the best bang for your buck for long-term. The expected longevity of stored seed is much greater than living plant collections. You don't get the plant genetic drift and the inbreeding that occurs with maintaining living collections. Costs are much lower for maintaining seeds than plants, and also we preserve the genetic integrity of the original population, which is almost impossible with a living collection. And very quickly, I want to just tell you about our national plant germplasm facilities. Every country in the world has a germplasm system set up, and every country has these systems set up to long-term preserve their crops and their wild and weedy relatives in order to breed new crops when the crops are threatened by disease or pathogens, etc. So in the U.S., here you see a map. These are all the NPGS gene banks, plant gene banks that we have in the U.S. These are governed by the USDA. All of our gene banks in the U.S. are governed by the federal system. We are starting one in North Carolina that is more of a state-run gene bank. And the reason why we want to do this is so that we can create economic advantages for our particular region. Our federal gene bank system freely provides its germplasm worldwide. Anybody in China can order anything from any of these federally funded gene banks and get the entire 2,000 accessions of corn from the station in Ames, Iowa. There you see Oxford, North Carolina, and that's where the tobacco collection is. So the germplasm is freely available. What we'd like to do is we're setting up a state germplasm system in North Carolina where we want to give economic advantage to our particular region and also preserve our native germplasm, which actually isn't normally done in that particular fashion. So the objectives of the repository are, number one, conservation of diverse native and medicinal germplasm through collection and acquisition, and that's long-term storage, vacuum sealed at -20. And then second, we want to conduct a variety of germplasm-related research. No longer can we just develop a collection for conservation. It's imperative that there's also a practical application so that the collection can help pay for itself into the future. So we want to encourage research with our collection. And then we also want to encourage the use of the collections for collaborative research and also for product development. So we'd like the collection to be used for developing natural products, for screening for drug discovery, but also the initial goal is for conservation, long-term conservation of very precious germplasm. So exactly what do we do? The first step is very basic, which is acquisition of the particular species. And what we've done is we've correlated an international list of medicinal germplasm from a database that I maintain, 6,000 species, and we've correlated it to the flora of our region, and we've come up with a target list of 2,000 species. So we go and we collect these. We have permits to collect on 1.5 million acres in North Carolina on national forest land. So we have a great area to collect. We collect the seed. We use very, very stringent collection protocols in the field. Everything is coordinated by GPS coordinates, associated species. We only harvest at the most 20% of a population of seeds because we know that's sustainable. When we collect plant material to make an extract, we never collect more than the population can maintain. Another aspect of what we do is we can bring the seed back that we collect if we have to develop a large amount for a researcher, and we can do controlled pollination regeneration in these screen cages you see. And what this is an example of our collection of black cohosh where we have 20 different populations representing the entire range grown in separate cages using bees as pollinators to produce material for research purposes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that particular project in just a little while. Another aspect of the project is the seed drying, cleaning, and sorting. We have collected about 1,500 accessions. This is our 4th year, and it's a very laborious task. We at the Arboretum, as a real asset of being here at the Arboretum, is we have a plethora of volunteers who we can train, and we've trained 16 volunteers for seed cleaning, drying, sorting, and also voucher specimen mounting. So we have a great crew of people to help with some of the more labor-intensive parts of the project. The next step after the seed collection is seed packaging, storage, and distribution. Again, we follow very stringent NPGS guidelines. We dry our seed at a certain % moisture and temperature. We use these tri-laminate mylar foil packets that vacuum seal, and then we freeze the seed at -20. This is the best way to get the longest-term storage for seed. We also do analytical sample preparation, and we use very, very controlled conditions to dry plant material and then to make an analytical extract for screening with regional researchers for potential drug discovery, but also for product development. Data management is a huge part of a germplasm repository. We make high-resolution scans and images of our endophytes, our seed, and our voucher specimens. We do germination testing also. We maintain a large herbaria. We have this is an herbarium, a classical herbarium specimen, and we maintain a voucher specimen of every single species that we collect. This has become a very important part of the new GMP regulations for natural products. It's imperative to maintain a voucher specimen so that you can prove the identity of your product in the long term. So we're actually setting up training sessions and teaching growers and harvesters and actually manufacturers also how to develop these, and this is also a service, a fee-for-service that we offer to our clients. So now to get to the specifics, and then I'm going to give an update on some of the research projects we're specifically involved with. We have 3 main goals from all of that. So our 3 goals are conservation, research, and economic development. It's a great method to make a conservation collection practical. So we have to have the research and the economic development with the conservation, which is really the only way you can fund conservation in a recession, to be quite honest. So why do we think that this particular part of North America is the best place for this project at the North Carolina Arboretum? Number one, the North Carolina Arboretum is on 500 acres, hooked up to the Pisgah National Forest, which is over 1 million acres with Pisgah and Nantahala. So we have permitted access to harvest along all those forest systems. The vascular plant richness, which is the main target of the species that we're collecting first, are the vascular species. You can see in this map in red, these are the richest ecoregions in the United States and Canada. And you can see that that area, that red area, follows the Appalachian chain. So we by far have the highest species diversity in that particular region, which makes this an optimal place, and you can see that we're almost in that center of diversity. In addition, this is a map showing you our glacial history, and you can see that the brown area is the area that has remained unglaciated throughout the last 3 ice ages. And you can see that it correlates directly with that vascular species richness. What that means is from a conservation and germplasm resource angle, that this makes this portion of western North Carolina an optimal place for a germplasm repository, which makes it a very, very valuable from a research angle. And now we're going to go into a little bit about the research portion of the project. So after the conservation of our native species, now we want to talk a little bit about the research and exactly what we offer. We've collaborated with people in Africa. We've collaborated with people all over the U.S., in Hawaii, Alaska. We've collaborated with most people. Most of our collaborations are here in the state of North Carolina. We've come up with some fee-for-services that our lab offers so that we can bring in extra income. We do native plant collection for hire with our granting agencies. We can provide samples of plant material to researchers. We do taxonomic identification of species. We do voucher specimen preparation, long-term storage, mounting, high-resolution photography. We can collaborate with researchers if they're looking for something as specific as potential plants that might bind to a specific receptor. It might be a specific hormone receptor. If we know what the chemical structure is that they're looking for, we can come up with from my database and research, we can come up with a list of species that will be ideal for their particular assay. And then we can actually also identify those species, collect them. We could make voucher specimens, store them properly, even collect the seed for conservation and provide an extract to the researcher for potential screening. We also do microscopy. We do, as I mentioned, making the plant extracts. We also can do endophytic fungi isolation and identification, long-term storage and development of extracts. We can do tissue culture regeneration and cell culture, which is cloning of plants. If a researcher found a specific plant that had incredible chemical activity and the other same individuals from the population might not have the similar activity, we can develop clonal methods by cell culture to clone those. And we also do seed germination testing. Let's see here. Some of the projects, to give you an example of some of the projects that we're currently working on, one of the first ones with the North Carolina Biotechnology Center is a project titled The Use of Genetic Markers and Chemical Quantification to Identify Populations of Actaea racemosa with Desirable Properties for Breeding a Regional Cultivar. This is black cohosh, Actaea racemosa's black cohosh. It happens to be one of the top 10 selling dietary supplements in the U.S., and it's also one of the top selling supplements worldwide. We maintain the national collection of black cohosh here at the North Carolina Arboretum, and if you look at this map, these are all of the populations that we maintain here in the controlled pollination cages. So we have 22 populations. If you look up in this left corner, you can see that this is the native range of black cohosh. It kind of follows that Appalachian chain that you saw. This is the worldwide range of black cohosh. It occurs nowhere else in the world. It is one of the top-selling supplements. And the majority of the production is in Germany. Germany makes a product called Remifemin, and they sell it in every Walmart and Eckerd's in the U.S. And we sort of missed the boat on it because we didn't move quickly enough, and it was used in Germany much more frequently than it was here, although now it's a huge seller in the U.S. So what we'd like to do is we think we can look at all these populations, analyze them chemically and genetically, and come up with the ultimate individuals to breed a regional cultivar that growers in western North Carolina could produce for economic development for our particular region. And in preliminary data, these graphs show you those 20 populations, and they show you the 3 chemicals of interest that the manufacturers base their purchasing decisions on. And you can see that the populations vary significantly. And what we found in preliminary studies is that the North Carolina populations, some of them actually are optimal in a West Virginia cultivar. So what we'll be doing is we'll be selecting the 2 highest producing and most robust populations and breeding them to develop a regional cultivar. What we also found is that the majority of this particular crop is wild harvested from native populations. And what we found is that when we grow it under a shade cloth structure, this is another 4-year research study that I did a few years ago, and after 4 years we found that rhizomes in the lower left here, you see this huge rhizome. This is a plant that was grown in a shade cloth under production in a field, and then the upper photograph is actually 3 rhizomes showing you native wild harvested rhizomes. And what we found is that the yields, and these are all from the exact same population source. This is a very controlled study. What we did was we took one population, grew under randomized complete block design, grew under a shade cloth in a forest setting, and then in a disturbed forest edge. After 4 years, the yields and triterpenes were compared, and you can see that the shade cloth production produced yields 8 to 10 times higher. So this makes this a potentially optimal crop for our region. On to the next study. Another project that recently got funded is the USDA has funded us to do a project, plant exploration in eastern North America, to collect black cohosh germplasm. And USDA actually sponsors the black cohosh population. It is a federal collection. And what the grant is going to allow us to do is something that's never been done with a medicinal plant, to our knowledge. This black cohosh population that we maintain here, I've maintained it for the last 7 years. And it's been growing in a field, all 20 populations. This grant is going to allow us to go back to all the native populations and compare genetically the field-grown species to the original native populations, and then also to compare the triterpene glycosides after 8 years, and also to increase the seed banks with the original seed from the original populations. So that's going to be an interesting collection trip in 2013. Another project that we have with the North Carolina Biotechnology Center, again, is the development of a North Carolina endophyte gene bank for biotechnology applications and product development. This is a very interesting study. This is a new area of research in natural products. What endophytes are, endo means in and phyte means plant, and endophytes are fungi that live inside plants. They're not pathogenic. The best way I can compare them is compare them to our gut microflora. They're beneficial to the plant. They increase its immune system, and they actually are beneficial in the long run, not detrimental as a pathogen would be. And so what we're finding is there have been a few published reports that some medicinal plants have fungal endophytes associated with them. They co-evolve, and the fungus eventually evolves the ability to produce the chemical that it's getting from the plant for production. And the best example I can give you this that everybody knows about is Taxol, the yew tree that's still to this day used for cancer. A fungal endophyte was found in Taxol, Taxomyces andriana, and it actually expresses Taxol. What this means is that you could get away from growing the plant potentially. You could isolate the endophyte, grow it in vat culture under much more controlled conditions, and produce natural products. For example, how penicillin was produced. Penicillin is a fungus. It's actually an endophytic fungus in a lot of plants. It's also, endophytes have been found in camptothecin that produce camptothecin, and also endophytes have been found that produce podophylotoxin. It's a very interesting new area of research. We're very interested in this project. It's going very, very well at this point. And we're looking forward to the next phase of this project, which will be to make extracts from all of the endophytes we've isolated, which will probably be about 500, and then to have our regional researchers screen these for various purposes, anti-inflammatory, antifungal, antiviral, and we're identifying some researchers for that next stage now. Another interesting thing to note about endophytes, this is hypericin, this chemical structure you see on the left. It's from Hypericum perforatum, which is St. John's wort. This is a very well-known, it's in the top 20 selling dietary supplements. It's used for antidepressant, and it's also antiviral. A very specific molecular structure. No other plant species produces this structure. And an endophyte has been isolated from it that actually produces hypericin, which is actually in the plant world, that's quite fascinating. So we're very interested in that. We actually have a native species of Hypericum that we're isolating an endophyte to see if it indeed will produce hypericin. Another one of the research projects we're associated with is the NCAM, National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine. This is a program run by the NIH, National Institute of Health, and they fund 5 projects every 5 years, and these are $4 to $5 million grant projects, and we are collaborating on one of those. We're associated with the Wake Forest Center for Botanical Lipids and Inflammatory Disease Prevention. My role is relatively minimal on this grant. We're doing botanical consulting for them with the project. It's a very interesting project. The area of botanical lipids in natural products is growing exponentially. It's definitely been recession-proof, and it will only go increase. The science backing botanical lipids is bulletproof. There's not a shred of doubt that that botanical lipids are very, very beneficial, and other omega fatty acids like the fish oils. And we see, as Greg mentioned, that the need for a plant-based omega fatty acid is incredible right now, and all of the companies are just grasping and running around frantically trying to fill this void, because there will be a huge demand for botanical-based omega fatty acids in the future. Because the fish are being fished out, because of the heavy metal problems associated with the products, and because research in the last few years has found that there are a couple of plant species that indeed can produce the omega fatty acids that our bodies actually can convert. So we see a lot of research moving towards that angle, and that's something we would like to encourage Western North Carolina to get a little more involved in. We also have another project that we're collaborating on with Golden Leaf Foundation. Actually, we're the PI on this particular one, and this is specifically for the Bent Creek Germplasm Repository. And this is to support us to develop new accessions and to develop 1,500 new extracts for screening for regional researchers, and this is for product development and drug discovery. We were able to hire, this is Dr. James Lyles, he's our extraction chemist, to do the extracting on this portion, and then Jeffrey Levi helps with the field collection and acquiring the new accessions, and this is going very well. We've worked hard on developing our methods and getting the lab up to speed to develop really high-quality extracts. We also have 2 projects locally with the Cherokee Foundation, RT-CAR, and these are small projects. We're working with them on a regular basis to develop germplasm collections for Cherokee that have to do with traditional edible crops that happen to have very significant nutritional value. We're working with development of Allium burdickii, which are ramps, developing a germplasm collection, and also development of Rudbecula cineata, which is sochan, for a collection in Cherokee. These are 2 species that have really not been looked at nutritional-wise, and so we'll be doing analyzing them for getting them checked for nutrition panel, and then developing a collection of species to disperse the seed to the regional Cherokee from their own national forest land. What we'd like to see is, because of the threat of diabetes to the tribe, we'd like to encourage them to produce in their own gardens some of their traditional foods that have some really shockingly high nutritional value. And then also economic development is the third. So we've gone through conservation, some of our research, and then also economic development is a very important part of the repository also. in order to make everything else run, we would love to see some of these accessions become products in commerce. And one of the projects we are collaborating with is realizing the potential of the Western North Carolina natural products industry. This is an interesting project with Advantage West and with Bio Business Center and Laboratory, NC State, Western Carolina, Blue Ridge Food Ventures, and RT CAR. It's a great project. We've been able to work with our partners on this and do a lot of workshops in the state, training, voucher specimen preparation, the importance of species identification, and proper quality control habits for small-scale natural products industries. And also the grant is looking, trying to organize a website so that all of the potential growers in the region could have a site where they can sell their products to the public. So this is a very interesting project also. We also had a project with USDA Hort Crisp, which was sustainable production of specialty crops in Ghana, and we were training some of the Ghanaian growers to grow species that they could produce teas. And now these teas, this project has just ended, and these teas are now available in the market and available online. And this was a very interesting market first. They looked for the market before developing the product. So it was an excellent project that's going very well, and it was headed by Jim Simon from Rutgers University. And with that, I'm going to slow down here and end by introducing my staff. We have recently hired James Lyles. He was hired in February for our extraction collection, helping to develop our extract collection. Jeff Levi is our research technician. Catherine Clark is helping with develop the Endophytic collection, and Sarah Pate is helping us with the black cohosh research collection. And I also want to thank all of our funders and collaborators and supporters in the region. We love the project, and we really look forward to seeing some of these products really make it. And also, one thing I did forget to mention is that the Golden Leaf grants have given us the opportunity to do consulting for small business owners in our region. Most recently, we just helped Nature's Nurse last week writing up doing some background research on a product that they're trying to develop in our region. And we really would love to see more natural products companies settling and starting in Asheville and actually creating the jobs that we think would help the economy. And with that, if I can take any questions or comments, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Joanne. We do have a few questions, and I'll put those on the screen now.
Okay. How do you protect the integrity of the data? That's a great question. Yes, that's a really great question. That's something that I have to battle with on a regular basis. I have the gene bank, the database for all the collections. I have the single copy of it, and of course I have it backed up. It's not on a public server. It is an electronic catalog, and the catalog is not public, and we will not make that public. Because we've harvested things like ginseng, which is almost extinct in our state, and because of over-harvesting, what we're seeing in the future is that ginseng all harvesting of ginseng is probably going to end in the future because of over-harvesting. Genetically, it's probably, the populations are so small now that they're all inbred, and it's probably too late to save ginseng, which is a real shame. So we do not make that catalog public. I work with people on a one-on-one basis, and we do not make that public, and I don't see that I will ever probably make that totally public. What we might do is hide GPS coordinates or hide specific directions, but we collect by a very, very, very stringent code. We never take more than 20%. We follow very stringent NPGS guidelines, and it's very important to us. So we'll be very, very protective of that database. Do the volunteers participate in the harvest? Actually, we tried, that's a good question too. We tried that at first, and to be quite honest, it doesn't work that well because when you have more than 2 or 3 people in the field, they ask, like every third question is, what is that, what is that, what is that, what is that? We wind up explaining things to them, and it slows us down too much. So no, our volunteers don't participate in that part anymore because of logistics. When we work in the field, it's you hit the ground running, you have a target, and it's very hard work, and it's probably a little more laborious than our volunteers really would like to do. Is your laboratory available to tour? Yes, it is. We just would need information ahead. My email address is jmccoy@ncarboretum.org, and if you'd like to email and come by and tour, we would love to have you. Number 4, in your cultivated versus forest produced black cohosh experiment, did you observe comparable triterpene glycoside concentrations in the higher yielding plants? Oh, that's an excellent question. It's a very good question. Yes, the triterpene glycoside, that was the best part of the study. I should have mentioned that. I apologize. Yes, so the higher yields were 8 times higher, and the triterpene glycoside concentrations were not statistically significantly different between any of the plantings. So a lot of times people mistakenly believe that the forest-planted plants are going to be higher than the cultivated plants, and that depends on the class of chemical compounds. These are triterpene glycosides, and the yields were not different. So you actually do have an 8 to 10 times higher yield. You have less adulteration. You have much more control of your plant. So really we think that production of the plants in a field setting is actually going to be is a much better investment. If not, would you comment on the challenge of balancing optimized yield versus actual bioactivity? That can be a challenge. That can be a challenge because that differs by plant. Sometimes people manipulate field production with fertilizer addition or things like that to optimize the chemical concentrations. Luckily, in the case of black cohosh, it wasn't necessary. For things like, and then every plant genus is different. You really can't make any, you can't make any cast in stone rules about chemical concentrations in plants because they vary. The different families of chemicals vary so much. For example, with ginseng doesn't really make sense because ginsenosides are the active ingredient, but purchasing decisions for ginseng is based on physical characteristics, not chemical concentrations. So they would rather have it grown in the woods where the root is all gnarled, whereas if you grow it in a field, your root is going to be bigger, but doesn't have the gnarled look, which I'm not really sure how that changes the quality of the product, but that is a strange case where that does happen. And then there are cases with other species where actually the wild harvested material may have higher concentrations. But there's a lack of data proving a lot of this too. Before we published these data on the black cohosh triterpenes, everybody always thought it would be better if it was grown in the woods, and it just isn't true. And with quality control issues and adulteration, such a huge issue now that will not be ignored, I think you'll see a lot more cultivation of natural products as opposed to wild harvesting.
Excellent. Thank you, Joanne. As we wrap up today, let's take just a moment to answer the brief survey that's on the right side of your screen. Your feedback will help us plan future BioForum events, and just be sure to click Submit when you're finished. Joanne, did you have any final or closing comments before we wrap up today?
No, it's been a pleasure. This is a wonderful program that you have here, and I look forward to seeing some of the future talks. Enjoyed it.
Thanks again. Today's presentation was recorded, and you'll be able to view it again. You will receive a thank you email from BioNetwork, and it will include a web link to the recording. And you can find out about other BioForum events by visiting our website, ncbionetwork.org. I encourage you to go ahead and mark your calendar for our next BioForum in January. Registration for this event is free and available online, again, at our website, ncbionetwork.org. A special thanks again to our panelists for today. Thanks also to North Carolina BioNetwork for making this presentation possible. And thanks to you for your time and participation. This concludes our webinar, and on behalf of BioNetwork, thank you and have a great day.